Welcome everybody to now the formal presentation for this event, and I'll be doing the introduction part. And the event is called Tracing New Ground for Diary Method, Perspectives on Using Diary Method in a Multi-Team Transnational Project. And I'm delighted to be co-presenting today with Nidhi Sabrawal, Arokia Mary, Polly Verklin, Rajeshri and Kanwaljit Verdi, and we'll each be presenting different sections. Arokia, please could you move to the next slide? Thank you. So an overview of our presentation today. I'll be giving a bit of an introduction to the talk and to the WAHEI project, and then I'll hand to Nidhi to discuss the diary design and implementation, then to Arokia to discuss the diary data analysis, and then to Rajeshri and Kanwaljit to discuss reflections from the Haryana State Research Team, and then to Polly to discuss the Assam experiences, the Assam State Team, and then we'll come to a Q&A. Thank you, Arokia. So I want to just give a little background to why we felt this event was important. And this is because from my now quite substantial experience of reading about diary studies, many methodological papers discuss, and the guidebooks as well, discuss intimate relationship between the researcher and the diaries. So take, for example, the paper by White on the effective response to receiving these beautiful journals sent back to her from her participants in the post. Or Scott's paper on the emotional challenges of keeping a close rapport between the researcher and the participants. There's often this sense that a diary method researcher is somehow very closely working with the participants. On the other hand, there are some studies where the diary seems to have been conducted by a range of researchers, sometimes, for example, a team lead and their students who've helped to implement the diary study. But often these kinds of papers don't include a methodological discussion of what it's like to do a diary study in a team. So I think from my quite wide experience now that our project WAHEI is a unique example of a project where we ambitiously decided to use diary method in a transnational project, in a project that also has a structure comprising multiple research teams. So that's what we want to try and showcase to you today in some way in the next hour. Thank you, Arokia. A very brief introduction to our project, and we've just published some of the background work in this publication here, which is we'll send the slides afterwards, and they have references on the last page, so you can find out more about it. But it stands for Widening Access to Higher Education in India, Institutional Approaches, and it's a collaboration between Warwick and NEPA, the National Institute for Educational Planning and Administration. It's funded by the Fair Chance Foundation, and it lasts from 2022 to 26. And in our project, we're exploring the role of publicly funded higher education institutions, particularly those that are rural or rural serving, and faculty members in building a culture of higher education outreach in India. We define higher education outreach, for those who may be less familiar with the term, as a specific set of practices which are defined by the shared aim of ensuring that potential applicants to higher education are aware of the options available to them and the processes they need to follow. So that's in terms of trying to inform young people and their families of the options open to them after they finish school, often in communities where there's some disadvantage, meaning that there's perhaps less access to information or direct experience about higher education. In the Indian context, there's a really strong culture of affirmative action. It's written into the policy that there are quotas for disadvantaged groups to access higher education. At the same time, there's also a strong culture of community outreach, meaning that higher education institutions adopt villages or conduct sensitization plays or cleanup operations, or have plant nurseries that the community can come and visit. At the same time, though, even though there is this affirmative action policy and there is this culture of community outreach, there's not really a strong culture of higher education outreach. So perhaps outreach is happening to the community, but information is not necessarily being shared about higher education. there's a lot of informal outreach happening where faculty members are helping young people to make choices about higher education just within their personal lives. However, we believe that there's a need for formalized higher education outreach, and our project is trying to work towards a culture of formalized higher education outreach in India. Thank you, Rekia. So a very quick introduction to the diary method within WAHEI. So we decided to use diary method. Both Nidhi and I had previous experiences using diary method, and I had co-edited the book that you can see on the right with Xuemeng Cao, and Nidhi had published, co-authored published a paper in it based on a previous diary project. So we both had that background. We decided to use diary to track faculty members' higher education outreach activities. So what were they doing in these sort of informal personal outreach activities? What were their motivations and experiences? We placed the diary amongst other methods and participants. I'll show you the diagram in a second. And so it wasn't our only method. And we wanted to map the existing landscape of informal and slightly formal higher education outreach in India to avoid trying to say that, say, a UK model of outreach should be implemented in India. We wanted to look at what was culturally appropriate. The project worked across 6 states. That's covering all regions of India. And we did a pilot study in Delhi. You can see the map on the right-hand side there. And in each state, there were 10 faculty members across 2 institutions that participated in the diary, 1 state university and 1 higher education offering college. We used a diary design. So there was sorry, that's the wrong way around. Interview design. So there was an interview first, and then a diary, and then a post-diary interview. And it was quite a structured diary form. You'll see it in a second. Every 2 weeks, there was an entry over a period of 3 months, and it was a paper diary. And importantly, the study was implemented by a team in each of the 6 states. We were using a collaborative research team model, and the analysis is also being conducted by state teams. So that meant that the design process through to the analysis process were happening across a Warwick team, an India-based central team at NIPA, and then 6 state teams. So that was our quite complex design. And finally, in the map, you can see the 2 red circled states, Haryana and Assam, and that's the 2 teams that have joined us for this talk today. Thanks, Regia. So this is the full design, just to show you in each of the institutions. So here in the state university, you can see that we had the institutional leader, faculty members and students participating. And for the faculty members, here we have the design just for the diary, just to show you where it's slotted into quite a complex overarching project design. Thank you. I'll hand over now to Nidhi for the design and implementation process.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you. So in terms of the process of designing the diary and its implementation, it followed a consultative and a collaborative approach, which has been mentioned by Emily already. It involved various steps which were carried out in the UK and in India at Warwick and at NIPA, with team members visiting and attending online. The feedback ranged across this collaborative and consultative design. The feedback ranged from suggestions of indicating at the end of the interview that can better transition FMs to the diaries, to then inform them how long they would complete, and requesting them their preferred way to remind them when to submit the diary. So this was sort of the feedback, the range of feedbacks that we received throughout the consultative process. So at the level of, to begin with, we developed the research instruments. We developed pre-diary interview guide, diary format, post-diary interview. This was at the initial stage. All of these resources were developed. We also had set up an advisory research group, and this was then presented to the advisory research group, which had senior members within at our institution, also academics from Warwick, as well as international academics who had worked on the diary or who were working on concerns around. Once we had uh, that that resource going through the process of getting the advice from our research advisory group, we then had a consultative workshop on the research instruments, which was held at Warwick. The research tools were revised based on the comments received at the meeting, and the comments then ranged from indicating the end of the interview that can better transition FMs to the diaries, and then the diaries having these diary entries where there would be a better transition to the post-diary interview. Following the research instrument development meeting, the research design and documents were comprehensively assessed by the HSSREC, the appropriate ethics committee at the University of Warwick. After revision, the design was approved for piloting. So I'm on the third, fourth, fifth box here. A pilot survey was then conducted with the aim to test the research instruments, including our diaries. The diaries were revised based on the pilot study. One of the important learnings from the pilot was the entry dates to be pre-filled in the diary format for reference and a reminder for the research teams themselves to collect the diary entries. The reminder for research teams, like for us, and then for our research team members. So we not only had the reminder for the faculty members who were entering their entries, diary entries, but also for us to collect those diary entries, because we had this 3-month-long process. Importantly, we also developed a fieldwork manual with the process of implementing the diary study, along with an example of a completed diary entry for the research team members. The research project was launched with the organization of the first research methodology workshop, where all state research team members participated, our 6 state team members. In this workshop, we all came to a shared understanding of our research questions and deliberated thoroughly on the research instruments, including our diary study. The field work then commenced and the data collection proceeded. Before that, after the research methodology workshop, in the research methodology workshop, we had presented the research instruments, as well as then got feedback, very important feedback from our state team members, because they were all representing different regions of India. So we contextualized those instruments to speak to that context and those regions of India, but also came to a common framework. This was again sent for ethical approval and followed the process from the final instruments were approved at Warwick through an ethical process. Now, the data collection commenced by our state's team. We all participated. We had regular online meetings, as well as visits to our state teams, the universities. Now we have held a second research methodology workshop, which is the analysis framework workshop, where we all met last year, seems like just now, last year, and came to a shared understanding on the type of analysis that we will be undertaking, the diary data collected, not only diary data, but also the all of the data, and how do we sort of make sense of the diary data that is being collected, both quantitative and qualitative, and also reflected on the writing framework of the state reports, all the reports that we are all contributing and writing together. So next slide, please. So this was like the whole process over 1.5 years, and this is one of the pictures from our second research methodology workshop at NEPA, where we are looking at the diary. The screen is around the diary entries. It's not visible, but just trust me, that's the screen, as well as we have all our state team members deliberating upon the diaries and um, coming to a shared understanding of the analysis. Next slide, please. This is the diary format, and it had a couple of parts. So, for example, these are the entry with basic information. Then it comes to experience, the first experience. Uh, these are all with all the options given on the experiences, which makes it quantitative, also followed by some qualitative open-ended interview questions. Thank you. Over to Arokia, please.
Thank you very much, Nidhi ma'am. I would be walking through the analysis process for this project. And in the next few minutes, I would discuss how the analysis process was developed at WAHEI as well as India. And so we were functioning with 6 different states across India. The diary process analysis was developed keeping in view certain guiding pointers. The 3 primary among them were like one, was a research question, that is to scope the higher education outreach practices which were already prevalent in India. So the phase 1 of the project is quite kind of like emphatic on it, and thus the diary as well as the analysis process was to capture all the outreach practices through the diary entries, which the FMs recorded, faculty members recorded through the everyday lives. The second was to develop a standardized diary analysis process, which would enable a collaborative discussion among the teams, but also share data with the core teams, which were located at different ends, that is WAHEI and India end, so that we had something mutual to discuss when we are talking about analysis, or the entries could be then factored in. And the third most important consideration was to develop a diary data analysis processes that could be confidently be deployed by state team members, the academics from varied disciplines who themselves were very new to the diary data study. And I myself as a doctoral student was still learning and engaging with the diary data process. So the pilot data, diary data, served as the basis for how the data management would be done by the 6 state teams. And this was quite clearly, neatly presented in the fieldwork manual, which was then presented at the field, like the workshop 1, research methodology workshop 1 with the state teams. This clear step-by-step process enabled the teams to clean the data, process the data, as well as prepare the data for analysis well before in hand. And as I said, the standardized diary analysis process, which I would be talking about, was shared in research methodology 2. And there were recurring online meetings through which we discussed all the complications or issues that were brought up by the state teams. And in the process, we have learned a lot. And there were also training sessions like as these to help with the diary data analysis. So the diary data analysis was to be done at 2 levels. As I said, the data was standardized and cleaned by the state team members, but the analysis process was then carried out at 2 levels. One was the overall analysis to answer the research question, that is, what are the prevalent higher education outreach practices which are carried out by the faculty members across 6 different states. That means that there would be contextual different experiences recorded by the faculty members, yet it would be an overarching higher education outreach practices which are carried out in India. And second was to see and understand how the faculty members themselves engaged in higher education outreach practices, what were their motivations, what were the preferred styles of higher education outreach practices that they involved in. So the overall analysis as well as profiling. So one by one, I would walk us through the different methods. As I said, for the overall analysis, an Excel sheet was developed in which all the entries that were then entered, all the items, questions that we saw in the diary format were converted into columns. And this stabilized the responses. And the second thing that was done for overall analysis was the same participants' responses covered over 12 weeks was then treated as discrete entries. Means one experience was treated as one unit. And that's why, as you can see in the Excel sheet, Hashi has like 4 experiences and experience number is mentioned, the date is mentioned, so that it would be treated as one separate unit for analysis, the overall analysis. This was pilot data. The data that I'm sharing on the screen is from the pilot data. And this template, once developed, was shared with the state research team members in the research methodology workshop, and then thenceforth once in 6 weeks meeting with the state research teams, one-on-one consultation where query arises, and consistent engagement throughout the analysis process. The second step that was followed was for the individual profiles. Here I'm sharing again from the pilot data Hashi's profile, in which one, how was Hashi getting involved in higher education advice, or what did she record in her diary as higher education outreach. So there were responses which were not particular to undergrad education, but also to master's education. But we considered those, we weeded them out and considered them as other experiences, whereas these were relevant for the project and thus considered. And the types of advice was also then like tabulated to understand how a particular faculty member was engaging in higher education outreach. For the pilot study, there were 4 faculty members who maintained the diary. However, for like the state members, each state has 10 members, 10 faculty members who would be recording their higher education outreach experiences in the diary. Keeping in view the research questions, the state teams were then advised to focus on like 4 faculty members who had recorded most number of higher education experiences across different institutions. So this could scope what was the varied kind of higher education advice that the faculty members were providing. Now I would like to hand over to the states to talk through their experiences. We'll start with Haryana, please. Haryana team.
Briefly would like to be we would be sharing some of the experiences of so we would be sharing some of the experiences of diary study which we implemented in the state of Haryana. Please next slide. So when we were initially told about the diary study, there was certain initial hesitation with us also, like how we will be implementing the diary study because this requires long-term participation, and how we will be convincing the FMs for the interview and then diary writing and then again another interview. We were also like hesitant in the sense that whether the participant would take it seriously and would they be completing 3 months period. But to our surprise and our experience basically was that the success of the diary method lies in the plurality of method it has, that is the interview, diary, and again the interview. And with the first interview, we could introduce the project to them. We could make them more comfortable. And then the second was for writing the experience, that is the diary itself, as was being told told in the design. It was structured so the FMs didn't had to write long expressions in it. And the third one was the post diary interview, and it was very, very useful, which we experienced because it was the post diary interview through which we could extract much of the information. In fact, it would have been difficult to obtain the information if we had applied any one of them. It is the compendium of 3 which is basically provided us the comprehensive information. And it was the plurality of this method which made it relevant, and it was successful in that manner. We also experienced that all those FMs who had kept the diary, they reported that they have enhanced understanding about the issues related to access of higher education. And we can also say that in the process of keeping the diary, they felt more involved and engaged. And like during the process of keeping the diary, they reported that they empathized with student in much better manner as compared to the earlier episodes of counseling. They could relate to they could relate with the problems of students more emphatically, and some of them reported that they related themselves with the students like they found themselves in the similar position when they were students. So they also reported that like they reassessed their advising role, like it was self-reflection on their behavior also. They told us very reportedly that it made them a better person, and they would take the experience of advising students in a more serious manner. And they said that they all through their career they have been advising the students, but while they were recording the experiences, they felt the importance of advising it. And they also felt that the kind of significant role they have been playing in the society. With the diary study, we also felt that FMs have provided a very unique perspective. Each one of them has provided a unique perspective. Some FMs had large experiences, some had reported smaller number of experiences, and they could basically provide the context, or we could gain the context in which they have been providing those large experiences. And we could find out from this study that the FMs who are more active in their public life, they have larger number of experiences. It is not that those who have recorded less number of experiences, they are not willing to participate, they are not willing to record, or they are not advising. But it also happened that during this window period of 3 months, uh, they have been advising all through, but during those periods they didn't get any student for counseling. It also happened. And we also had one experience where FM's everyday circumstances were affecting the diary study. I would like to quote one experience of ours. There was one FM who was very enthusiastic in keeping the diary, and this FM was very friendly with the students in his class in college. And it so happened that one of the student in her class eloped. And what happened, of that student filed an FIR, and this particular FM was implicated into that FIR. And then when we were following the diary, that FM told, basically asked us, do you really want me to complete the diary now also? Means why I'm narrating this is that it gives us insight into how dangerously patriarchy works in our state, where even an FM who is economically empowered also, but how gender roles and social identity shape the experience and alter the behavior of diary keeping. We would also like to narrate, next slide, please. Uh, so we would also like to narrate some of the challenges which were associated with the diary study. And you see, when they were reporting everything. Like, so in terms of valid entry, like they were very pointedly told that this is about UG entries, but they had reported other entries also, like PG counseling also. So invalid entries remain a challenge. Secondly, it is the FM's choice how to say their stories. So they want to present, if they want to present the best version of themselves, we have no control over it. Like, the subjectivity is inherent into this method. Another thing is, another challenge to this study is also that they would record the events outside the study window. Means it is not that they will record only for 3 months period. If they are recording, we really have no control over it. And the last thing which I want to say is that, like, careful implementation of diary method is also one thing. It was, as we have heard, all three of them. It was very nicely, diligently designed method where we were told how to conduct pre-diary interview. The diary was also structured. They don't had to write long entries. Post-interview was also being instructed upon how we need to conduct, what we have to ask. But even then, uh, its implementation, careful implementation is also required, because you are conducting it for a longer period of time. Three things are involved. Very many times they are not agreeing to all three things. We have to say them, okay, we are just talking to them. We talking to you. We are not taking a sort of interview. We are just talking about your experiences, kind of thing. So that is basically being required. Thank you. That was our experience.
Assam team now.
Thank you, Arokia, and thank you, the group, for having me here to share my experience. So I think you have seen where Assam lies. It's it's in the extreme corner of the country. And even though we got clear instruction to take into consideration the different variables, so when I'll be basically talking about how did we select the participant, then how did we collect the data, and what were the issues that emerged while entering the data of the diary interview. So as I said, like when we were asked to take participant, we took into consideration the mosaic of different socio-cultural background of the region where we belong to. So we took into consideration that they are from the gender factor was taken into consideration, religion, stream, years of experience, age. Along with that, we also found that this two institution has different terms of contract for the teaching faculty. So that one also we took into consideration. So keeping that thought in our view, we selected our participant. And when we did the diary interview, we had very contrasting experience as two teams. First, in the state university, we found that all the faculty members were very eager, and they're also surprised. So when we talk about the diary interview, the first one was for me also. When I happened to hear the term diary interview, it was a big surprise for me. When I read through the entire document, like I Googled and I didn't find what is diary interview. And I think that same happened to the participant also. So what is diary interview? They thought that they'll be provided a thick diary and they have to enter. So that curiosity was there, the surprise was there. And this was in the state university. On the other hand, when we approached the participants, there was some sort of refusal also, like in the in-depth colleges. They said that what benefits are we going to get? So because it will be a tedious work, and they really have a very busy and tight schedule. So there was some sort of reluctance of accepting or being a participant because of the busy schedule. And we felt that when we initiated this whole process of selecting the participant, the rapport building was very important because it is a 3 months period of time. So for us in the state university, it was not so difficult because being a senior professor in the university, people happen to know us and know me. So when that responsibility was given, they were eager. But that didn't happen in the state university. The state university faculty happened to be a younger one. So when she approached the participant, it was difficult for her in some way. So there I saw some sort of power and hierarchy relationship which comes in when we select the participant. But they were quite smart enough and they worked out. So we could get very responsive 10 participant. And I found that while in the initial part, when we initiated this whole diary interview, the pre-work is very important because we want information from them. So we gave a very thorough understanding about what is this diary interview is all about, what are the purpose of this interview. And actually the workshop helped us out because we knew what we wanted from them. So that explanation, thorough explanation of those about the diary interview was very important. And also how to write the entries. So we literally had to give a demonstration of how to write the entries. And thorough briefing was, I felt, was very important, like about the purpose of diary interview. And what I felt was that what I didn't do, and for which I had some issues later on, that I could have made a checklist. Like these are the things that I need to tell them when you are entering the data. So I could, if I would have made a checklist of the things that I should have told them, then I think it would have been much more productive from our team. So next slide, please. So in the process of collection of the data, we created WhatsApp groups in both the institution. We created, and the mechanism that we use was more so virtual in the state university. So most of the interaction after the diary was given to them, we created a group with all the participants, all the 5 participants in the state university, and also the research team members. And all the interaction in the state university used to happen through the WhatsApp group because it's quite a big university. So it was not possible to have person-to-person interaction, or we don't bump against each other also. So this virtual WhatsApp group really helped us out. So in that WhatsApp, on the other hand, in the state university, there was 2 type of interaction while the data collection process was going on. One was WhatsApp group, and other was also personal interaction, because it's a small campus. So they used to meet each other every day. Then they used to talk about the diary interview. And another thing with what we did while collecting the data was sending reminders, because it's a long period of time, and along with other academic activity, outreach activity, research activity, these are some sort of additional activity we have given them. So I used to, as a team member, I used to send them reminders in the group, and according to the dates, a day before the entry of the data, and on the day of entry, and also, like, I used to call them up, and I used to tell them that you need to fill it up. And towards the end, I again check. I used to send them personal messages that hope you have filled up the form, you have filled up your entry of this 2 week. And that is how, like, we used to keep them engaged. Then once they fill up the form, I felt it was very important to appreciate them. And I used to tell them that we are very grateful, and used to encourage them for the next entry to happen. And I found that this whole process of keeping because they had different dates, all the 5 faculties have different dates. So when the other participants are filling, they were reading the messages, which was also keeping them engaged. And in the messages, I used to tell them, like, please feel to call us whenever you're required. And but in the process, we found that we took some extra faculty members because we were worried that will we get 5. So we took 6 from the 2 groups, and there were 2 dropouts, one from the state university and one from the government college in-depth, and they happen to be the senior most faculties, and maybe because of the busy schedule they couldn't do it. What I felt like, even though we created the virtual, we had a WhatsApp group, we had a personal interaction, what I felt was important is that I should have done a follow-up after each entry. Because as Haryana team, they had some like, they didn't understand, like they wanted to write what they found it interesting. So I should have done a follow-up after each entry, because there was some invalid entries, like, so that could have been avoided if I would have done the follow-up. What type of entries did you do? And also reminder of the instructions. If I would have reminded the instructions from time to time to the team, maybe those invalid entries would have been lesser. So this is my reflection. The next slide, please. So while doing the interpretation, I was really surprised, first of all, because I thought that there'll be hardly any entries from State University, because when we had a pre-diary interview, they said that they do it, but not so often. So I found that this whole diary interview is like documenting the everyday academic life of the 10 faculty members, and they gave us very in-depth information. So this whole, in the interpretation, I found that it was very in-depth information of the entire 3 months of their work. And it was more or less, as I stated, that it was an everyday academic life. You're recording every day of your academic life. And it recorded nuance of the academic outreach programs, because I was surprised that there will be 10 entries from in-depth college, government college in-depth, and 3 entries from the state university, and these were the highest entries. So 3 entries were highest from the state university, and 10 entries from government college in-depth. And towards the end, even though some of them were reluctant from the rural colleges, but towards the end, everybody got very much involved. They actively participated, and they told us that they have learned they have learned a lot throughout the process. And they also told us that next time when they will be giving the advice, the list of advices that has been given to us, they'll reflect on that, and they'll be providing more advices, even though they are seeking more. I think that is the positive time. And for government college in-depth, they felt that the time was perfect, because when we did the diary interview, that was during the PG undergraduate programs. Admission was in due process. So the pre-admission preparedness was at its peak. Maybe that is one of the reason for which they had 10 entries there. And there were 2 faculties. Out of 5 faculties, 2 faculties had highest 10. So what I feel was that in the diary interview, there was a portion which was a discussion. And in that discussion, there were lots of enriched information that we got to derive it. And that was very much informative. That went beyond the question which was given to us. So what I felt, because since it was a larger group, and distance was a factor, because I was set up in one place where the other in-depth college was 200 kilometers away from me. So it was not easier to have very strong communication all the time. So what I felt was that in the discussion, if there would have been some leading questions, then we could have got far more important or some sort of more enriched information, because since I was taking care of the state university, those leading questions were similar to all the 5 faculties of our institute. Whereas for in-depth college, in the discussion, the questions were different. So this was something like we can work out. Like, this is what I felt that I should express. Like in those areas where it's vague for a larger group as such, the leading questions can help us to get what we desire for. And thank you so much. So these are the 2 institutes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Polly, and all the previous speakers. Thank you, Arokia. I think you can stop sharing the slides. Thank you. So I want to just thank all the speakers for managing to keep to fairly limited time. I think we managed to include all of our perspectives. I don't know what the viewing experience has been like, perhaps something of a roller coaster, but we've hopefully managed to give a flavour of this very complex process that we've engaged in. And as you can see, that even the group of us here, we're not at all of us who have been involved. It's a far-reaching project with lots of tentacles into different institutions and such like. So I want to kind of express my thanks on behalf of myself and Nidhi as the co-principal investigators of the project, to everybody who's helped in enacting this complex process of the diary study. And I hope what you can get a sense of is that we've had a shared process, but also tried to have something of a shared ethos for our study, that is a kind of combination of rigor and of respect for our team members and also for our participants. So even though in a lot of diary studies there's this kind of emotional connection between the researcher and their participants all working very closely together, in our project, I'm sitting here in Coventry today, and the diary study has been enacted by places I've never been yet, and yet I think there's a sense of shared something shared, a connection between all of us around this study. So that has been, I think, the achievement of the project.